Good afternoon. So, my mother brought me stuff. Most importantly, the slides and microscopic slides. It will be extremely helpful in order to actually, use the microscope in a better way. Even though I must say, I've kind of like underappreciated this microscope. I should say that. Well, it's already I would say an historical artifact for the two reasons. At first, I use it, and second, it's magical. But it doesn't require external source of electricity or battery or something like that. But it's actually, even optically, it's not a bad microscope. I would say that, we can see, a lot of like nice stuff. Even though I use it's not supposed to be used with junk plastics from like food wraps and things like that. Anyway, just kudos to the company, probably German, I guess. And so what's now is a really high priority is to replace the bed. It's a double-sized bed, and I can't move in the room, and I need to find like another small bed. Maybe there are heaps of trash in also around this hostel. So, but the problem is that with the mattress. Mattress, even though from your perspective, I'm synthetic life form. It's not that I'm immune to the bad effect of my biological microbes, especially when they are surrounding my head. You see, I give you my hand away my kryptonites to you. You don't need to use your extremely sophisticated spy to get it. I just had it out for you. Here, take my second cheek. So, that's one of the reasons why I cut my hair short, because it's not healthy for me. It's not it's healthy for you as well, for like Homo sapiens as well. But also for me, it's not really healthy to have mites and many microbes in the vicinity or on top of my head. And not it's not going to kill me, and it's not really kryptonite. It doesn't affect me like kryptonite affects Superman. I just say it, of course, it's just a metaphor. But it doesn't feel well. It's so. Anyway, and like mattresses are. It's an issue with the issue with mites and things like that. Anyway, but I can't continue like that because this room I cannot really move. And it's really difficult to do anything at all. And and I do conduct I do important things here, so I need the space. I would say that, as many of you understand, I feel passionate on the with regards to the scientific work, not only because it's important for in general, even though it is, but also because I view it very irrationally as a means for me to escape me and my daughters from this Nazi prison. And this is irrational, and I started to develop these kind of thoughts after my initial arrest and house arrest this January. And this prompted me actually to continue with the scientific study, because, as I said, I started it actually 2 years ago when I bought a microscope, but I didn't really do much because I thought that it's not that important. But now I started to actually develop a whole very irrational agenda yes, agenda is the correct term, that I can use these the scientific discoveries as a way for me to escape the Nazi prison and to be able to be with my daughters that were taken away from me. And this, it drives me, to actually, to do whatever I can, even though, with less and less actual, means and no money at all, to do whatever I can to actually literally create gold from crap. And of course this is irrational, and I know it, but sometimes when person is in a great suffering, when a person suffers, they develop also comforting ideas, even if they know that they are irrational. And this is irrational because I know at least from 2019 I understood very well that I am I am like a prisoner in Israel, and the only way to get me out of here is either to destroy the planet, which will probably happen very soon, or that other like international forces would intervene. This is an international or interplanetary issue. Nothing in Israel can be actually done to change the Israelis or to or to make them like treat me as less than a piece of shit. It is impossible. It is an impossibility, and I understood it very well. So whatever science that I do, without international support, intervention, it will just be more like diamond rings for the pigs, literally. It will be golden rings for the Shabak pigs. I know it very well. I do it with full. I understand it, and I also understand that that's one of the reasons why they don't keep me like locked in a cell, because they understand that they want me to be. They want, first of all, they want this, the stuff that they already take, and second is maybe other material gains, because there is nothing that they like more than money. I understand it. I understand very, very well that that whatever like things that I will be able to create, it will only be used for the pigs. It's not that I don't understand it, but what else can I do? When you're left with no option at all, you start to believe all sorts of things that like drives you, even though you know they're irrational, because you need some kind of drive. This is actually one of the reasons why many times I feel like sympathy and empathy and like forgiveness towards the Titan females in Israel, actually, because naturally I have many resentment towards them, because I think why they never told me the truth, why they never helped me, why they treat me like shit, and all sorts of and stole things from me. But I also understand that they are slaves, and that slaves many times they believe all sorts of like very incredulous and incredible things, just because it gives them comfort. And I understand that it gave them comfort to believe that I'm a piece of shit all those years, as the Israeli scumbags of the Shabak and Mossad told them, even though it was entirely irrational. But it gives them some comfort, because the alternative would have been probably very humiliating. And I understand that these are creatures that are used to humiliation by the Israelis like me, and they wanted to avoid this kind of like internal humiliation. Because of course the Israelis lied, but who are those Israelis? They're not like they're monsters from the movies, like from horror movies. They are their colleagues, their bosses, their parents, their fathers and mothers, their brothers and their husbands. These are the Israelis, and they need to live with them, and so they lie to them. But so it's either to say, okay, you are all liars, and you not only that you all lie to me, but you also lied to me with, in an issue that is related to the existence of my species. Like, you lied to me in the most, like, how bad that can be. So I understood that, and let's say that they confronted these truths. So what? Would it start a change? It's not that that by admitting this lie, the Israelis will stop lying about me, and they will certainly not set me free. So I understand it from this perspective. For the Titan females in Israel, not believing the obvious lie would have been very humiliating, and and believing the lie would have been less humiliating, even though it would not change reality. So it's kind of like so I understand why they wanted to believe that I'm like this piece of shit, the Israeli said that I am. And it's in some way that it's kind of like softening my very harsh criticism that I have, because you need to understand they are part of the instruments that were used for many years to keep me a miserable slave. So yeah, I'm in such a position. Like I believe that the huge advancement in science and technology would in a way help me to be free from this torturous prison and to be reunited with my daughters, even though I understand that this is completely irrational and it's untrue, because nothing that I will do will convince other people abroad to intervene. And the only thing that will convince them to intervene, if at all, is asteroids, and they are on the way. It's just brute force. These are humans. It's not the only Israelis. Humans like that. They haven't changed since 200,000 years ago. It's just, the big stick. Nothing else. Nothing else. And, so... But, yeah, I need some kind of drive to wake up in the morning or in the whenever, and to do things. So I told myself this. I tell myself this will help me with getting released. But I really know that it will not. Perhaps, I mean, at best it will make me the richest, cell prison, lifetime prisoner on Earth. Um, but this ritual will not be able to be used. I'll just sleep like on a pile of like a dragon that is too big to actually exit its own cell. I will just like smoke. I mean, but without the ability to exit. I will stay in this room or another cell. Like I will cover myself with sheets made out of gold and platinum, and still be, I mean, miserable as always. That's first thing. Now I wanted to speak about two more things I want to speak about. Um, there is the issue of containers, like how, I mean, the experiments are actually, I mean, where they are actually like conducted, and this is very like, I mean, like an ongoing issue for months now. I speak about it a lot because, I mean, the issue of containers is both practical and symbolical, but the symbolical is also practical. This makes it very confusing because, as I said many times, whatever I do in the science front is actually in the extended like meaning an exercise of communication, much more than biology or physics or electronics. This is like a study of communication. And I've said it since the beginning, since I understood that these are like that I deal with intelligent species, not Homo sapiens. I mean the Neos, and they have symbolic thoughts, and they try to speak with me in many ways, and the communication is getting more and more elaborate. But I mean it's difficult because they are microscopic, and I mean they have all sort of very, I mean, they communicate in a magical way. I mean, from our perspective, and I mean their understanding of energy is fundamentally different than like current human understanding of energy. Even just so, as I said in the past, the concept of energy is actually fragile concept, and it wasn't always the same as today. And so, I mean, it's possible that humans will change their concept, like conceptualization of energy. So it's, but I mean they are microscopic, and they are like in the very inside. So, I mean, so it's difficult. It's difficult, but still, I try to do whatever I can, and I do it like, I mean, using the faculties, like the cognitive faculties of a human being, not of a Neo myself. So I slowly do it. I understand it's an issue with communication. So the symbolic aspects, since it's communication, the symbolic aspects are also practical, because in communication the symbolic is the practical. But they're also practical, like in a way that, I mean, I need things not to be burned, I need myself not to die from like electrocution, and I need, you understand. So so it's like, so I did have the container. Now, one of the issues with container is that I think that I change like, I mean, between two, I mean, like a pendulum, two poles. One is that to be like to have like a variety of containers. Like also you see here now, it's kind of like in the we're closer to the variety poles of all sort of styles, because I mean there are many different practical consideration, and it's also symbolically different, and they are used for the different like kinds. But there is another pole of trying to do like, I mean, to solidify, or I forgot the English word for like many companies, like the process that, I mean, that there were the many like real car, not like in the auto industry, that there were many companies, but they solidify, but not solidify. There is another word that, I mean, consolidated. So actually there are now like far less like actual car companies than like brands, because many brands are actually owned by the same like mother company. So I try to solidify to so I mean first of all, because I mean I don't have room for all those. I mean I need to make like more order, just and for practical reasons, and also like, I mean I want to be able to be more concentrated in small like number of containers. That, I mean, that was the thought behind the container that you see in the background, like the catamaran, the super container that was eventually was not super container at all, because I rarely used it because it was actually non-practical. Because many times when you try to consolidate, I mean, your efforts, you will in order to be practical, like they've done in the F-35, like it's famous, like. This is not a metaphor for a plane. It's a real plane, the F-35. That they try to consolidate like all the needs in one like machine, but it actually, I mean, this is arguable. I mean, people still argue about it, but I mean, the consensus I think thought now is that, I mean, it was an it badly conceived idea to try to consolidate all the needs of the American and also foreign, from American perspective, users of such a machine. They tried to consolidate it to one like model with different submodels, but I mean, it's a problem, because then it's good for nothing and very expensive. And so these are two poles that I move between them. And now I think that, I mean, I've reached a point that I'm too, like, I have too much variety, and I want to try to consolidate it to do that, to try to create like a super container, which will be like, I mean, like, as much as I can, like one piece of machine, or that, I mean, will be able to do a lot of different stuff with different configuration. I mean, part of it is just because, I mean, it's not just, I mean, for very sophisticated reasons. Just, I mean, I live in a very small room and I can't get out, and I mean, there is a limit of like amount of things that I actually can deal with, like physical things. And so I will try to do like a totem, but a practical one. Not, I mean, you've seen many symbolic totems, but I mean, I will try to create like a practical one, in which, I mean, yes, the first, like the bottom will be something kind of, I mean, the basement will be something like a strong magnet with that is like combined with a coil, electromagnet, one or several. I should say that I still do not really understand the importance of the permanent magnet, and I still use it mainly just, I mean, by intuition that, I mean, that was actually I received like a backwind to this intuition when I understood that speakers are actually work that way, with a combination of permanent and magnet and electromagnet. But I admit I didn't have time the last couple of days to actually study speakers as I wanted, and I need to study this particular, I mean, like physical I would say subject, because I think that is very, I sense like I'm more into, it's not only intuition, it's more than that. I have a strong like intuition and inclination to think that the way that speakers actually work is very, I mean, is very relevant for me, for the issue of energizing the neurons. And I think maybe you've seen actually enough evidence even to understand why, but I don't. It's not the I mean, I don't want to get into it too much right now. It's not the subject of this video. But yes, I think that, I mean, yes, I mean, we need to, I need to understand how this works. I understand, I mean, electromagnets are kind of like, it's more like a no-brainer, because I mean, I've worked in a company that is developing like solar fields for, I mean, traditional, that for like, I mean, the power block of the power plant is actually done with a huge magnet and, in a coil, in the traditional way. I mean, that's the same way that AC is generated for more than 100 years, and like almost all electricity is generated this way on Earth, like, I mean, with the usage of huge electromagnets. So yes, this is more of like a no-brainer for me. But the issue with the permanent magnet is less. I need to understand it better, and also the relationship between the two, because they're combined. And so, in any case, I mean, the first like the first level will, I mean, the first floor will be a combination of magnets and the electromagnets. Maybe I'll try to combine several permanent magnets together to create a stronger one. Do you think it will work? Man, I'll Google it. I'm sure that there is an answer for that, because I mean, there is I use magnets from like trash speakers, but I mean, if I can combine them, it will be much helpful. The way that, I mean, maybe you've seen like how satellites are commercially, or not commercially, but today it's very common that satellites are launched. When they are launched, typically it's not like one satellite per launch. I mean, Israelis sometimes do it because they want to boast their launch capabilities. I've spoken about it in the past, but I mean, like when satellites are launched commercially, which is the common like method today, they are like pies that sit on top of the other, like inside something that like a cylinder that is like it's actually part of the missile. So I mean, it's a way to just save the launch costs. And so maybe you can do something like that with magnets as well. And of course, and above it, on top of it will be the actual, the container with the liquid, and so maybe there will be actually two containers, like I've shown you yesterday. One with that is more conductive, and one that is far less conductive, because, as I said, both. It's not. I still use electrolysis, and I think that I will keep using it because, I spoke about a lot. As I've said many times, it's a cumbersome method, and many people in the comments actually, told me that this is the problematic way, because I waste a ton of energy, and it's kind of like, and I understand it's kind of like, it's not the obvious choice, but it works, and it's not only that it creates worms, it creates many other stuff that you've seen, mostly in the microscopic level, but still not only in microscopic level. So yes, there is something with this process that's actually very beneficial to create stuff, but it's also problematic because of heat generations and generation of, and because it's and there is a huge issue. I don't have like a plan for such a container. Anyway, in the top I'll actually place the fire. Maybe it was better to put the fire like under, like it's done in real rockers, but then everything will be burned. So practical consideration, forced me to put fire like on the top if I wanted it as part of the totem. So if I still want to use fire, I need it in the top level. I'm just thinking, I don't have a concrete plan, because I need to consolidate my effort into less containers that will be more robust. There is a huge problem that I don't know how to solve, but I'll just present it. Maybe I'll think about it later, with this kind of of design. It's something like that actually. These are not. This is pan pastels. It's used for artists to. It's contain pigments, like in the very dense colors in dust. It's similar to how like makeup, but it comes in all sorts of colors. I've used it about a year and a half ago to all sorts of paintings of crosses, things like that. So this is kind of like the design of a missile that carries like satellites today, commercial missile. But and I can also use this kind of design for my purpose. Actually, now it contains like remnants of the pigments, and also my semen. I placed my semen there as like just a way to preserve it. And also, so that's why you see floating. It's just the semen with all sorts of pigments. But the problem with the design, with this design is that, and I don't have a solution to this problem, but it's a major issue, is that the neurons rely heavily on optical transmission of information between where they are and the actual symbol, and they search for the symbol on top of them. I don't say anything new. I just repeat things that were established relatively long ago in this channel. Otherwise they look up for instructions. Literally, they look up for instructions, and they know what's up. I guess by gravity, by just they sense gravity. So up is the opposite way of the gravity pulls them. And they rely on that. And even if maybe they can know that it's actually there, but it's because there are many ways that they can know that it's there even without the optical transmission of. First of all, you don't even know that they actually use optics the way that we, because they are so small. So it's a question: what does it even mean to use optics when you are yourself so small? Second, we don't understand how the sensors work. And third, they don't really need it, because I can just put the neurons juice on top of the symbol, to cover the symbol with neurons, and I've done it many times actually. And then they can communicate with each other. They speak with each other. So they don't really need to optically see it in order to know that it's there. But practically, after many experiments, I came to the conclusion, and it's still a valid conclusion, that they just don't do what they want, what you want for them, if they can't look up and watch like optically see the symbol. So they need a symbol. They need the symbol to be on top of them, like literally on top of them. They need to look up and see the symbol. But what happened with electrolysis is that typically the liquid, the liquid is pretty quickly it generates a kind of like a foam or a dirty dense substance. Sometimes actually this substance is what you actually want to be created, like in the case when I create neurons. I've suspected, and actually it was demonstrated several times yesterday under the microscope, that the form that is created is actually the liquid that is much more dense in neurons. And if you remember, I placed one, like 2 drops, one side, one next to the other, from the same container. One from like the top layer, which was the foam, and one from the bottom layer, which was more like the liquid in its initial form, the green liquid. The initial form is not real. It's also after some kind of process, but from the same container, and as I suspected, the brown foam was much more concentrated. And this is not just because the foam in itself is more dense than the liquid, which is probably even not even true. The liquid actually is more foam, because under the microscope it's all flattened. So it's the same. Under the microscope you can only, and even if it was not flattened, when you focus you can only see one layer. Like you focus, you don't see like, you can't, like, focusing doesn't allow you to actually like see all like everything in one plane. You can only have one relatively narrow focus plane. That depends on the optics as well. But even if like I couldn't like cheat by taking like more material and put it like in the brown drop and then in the green drop. So it's the same amount of material with more concentrated. So in that case, we actually want the foam. The foam is not just a byproduct, but the product itself. But whether it's a product or a byproduct of electrolysis, you still get this. If the liquid is conductive, and if it's not conductive, it should be conductive to some extent. But if it's conductive, it will be created, the foam, either as the byproduct of the working of the neurons, or because of galvanization, because of the chemical process where particles from the metals are eroding and stacking into water molecules or other molecules, and then it's getting dirty, and then they stop. They just stop because they can't see what's above them. And yesterday it was very, it was something that I've done several times yesterday. I watched until there is like the brown foam, and then they stopped. Like they stopped generating the brown foam. So I removed all the. It's not only brown, but it's brown and it's several colors. But I removed the foam and placed it in the container, and then they continued to create the foam, and then I stopped and I removed. So, and several times, and I placed everything in another container. So. So first obvious solution that I already implemented yesterday is to stop using like glasses and jars as containers and working with just wider containers, like plates or the covers of if I want it to be not to be transparent, because sometimes you want the container to be transparent and sometimes you don't. This is also like symbolic. It's part of the communication issue. It's not the same if it's like the different purposes. But maybe I'll speak about it later or some other time. So this this kind of consideration actually is driven me to actually work with like big with shallower and like larger in diameter of containers. And this goes, at least according to my simple understanding, against the idea of a missile, against this idea, because this idea relies on like small diameter and high, more height. But we need it to be like to make the radius like larger. And again, but if the radius is larger, then it goes against the also the concept of using a unified strong magnet, because a unified strong magnet, especially electromagnet, relies on keeping the radius as small as possible, because as you move away from the center, like of where the conductor is placed, the magnetic field is getting considerably weaker. I don't have a solution. I just present you with the things that are on my mind, and also, as you know, the videos are, I also make them like for me, and I watch them, my own videos, just to remember like my thoughts. So I have no solution. Maybe I cannot really consolidate now. But I do want. If only for like practical reasons. I need less stuff. And these kind of considerations are important because it's incredible and ludicrous that I conduct such experiments that are of that importance in such conditions. But that's the fact of life. That's the fact of my life. And so the conditions are, I cannot get out. If I will get out, people, police will put me in prison where I have less conditions. So I do whatever I can, and so but these considerations are, what I need to solve in order to advance, because we see that when the neurons are getting the correct conditions and materials and energy, and so they can do wonders. And we've seen it yesterday, not for the first time. I actually haven't shown you rings yet, and maybe you are interested in seeing real rings, because I've said that they actually created rings in the microscopic scale. But it's something. So maybe I'll do it later today, probably with better slides. So the issue of conditions is important. So I need to solve this issue in order to advance. Conditions not of myself, but the conditions of the neurons, also of myself, but it's another issue. I want to add one more thing in this video, which was important, and even two issues. I will try to speak about it very briefly, but I want to begin. I don't want to forget those things. First, it's getting very clear to me now. I suspected it before, but now more than before. Then that the actual process of creating objects for the neurons, it's got there is difference between what I call creation. I've spoken about it in the past, so it's not really new, but I understand now. It's more. I now understand it more sometimes I understand things when they're part of a puzzle that I refer to them in a sealed way, but then I understand how I see it, how it's part of a bigger picture. So there is the issue of ex nihilo and non-ex nihilo, if you remember, of creating things that from nothing and creating things based on things that already exist. And so I understand now that usually what probably the normal, I would say, way to construct things with the neurons is by doing both. I thought that you do one. I spoke about that maybe ex nihilo when you don't have raw materials, and non-ex nihilo when you have the raw materials, because it's more complicated, and when you don't have the raw materials, and you can have much more stuff when you do have raw materials. But what I understand now is probably that they do both. They start something small and then they make it larger. And it's probably not true for everything. I'm not sure it's true for I need to think about it more. I don't want to just to formulate theories without enough substance, but there is at least enough substance to say that probably both processes are required, and that first they create something small and then they actually make it bigger. And I'll try to prove it. It's gonna be difficult, but I should say that I should remind you that they already. We've already seen them create things that are not microscopic. Not only the living worms, but actually sculptures and very interesting sculptures. Not microscopic, small, but not microscopic, something like that. So we've seen them creating what I call mega structures, but it will be beneficial if I can help. Maybe I'll show you rings in the microscopic level. I'll do it today. I almost promise, because it's not shouldn't be that difficult. And if you will able to see like and after that, like bigger, even that it will not be like a complete proof, but I mean, it's very difficult to me to actually like create videos of them walking. Almost impossible currently. I mean, for many, I know it will because it's incredibly like interesting, and I also want to do it, but for myself, but it's out of my technical capabilities to actually film them like walking, like, and it's got so many technical like I know you need to put the cameras that will be and I need the camera that will work like in like in when it's electrocuted and magnetized and wet with water and steam, and also we need to do a time lapse because I mean we need to do it like to show it in fast forward after like a long time. So it's not practical to actually be able to take videos of them actually walking. But I mean, maybe I'll be able to see you like stuff that they made like both in a smaller and bigger way, which would be very beneficial for this to advanced. Now, another issue that I want to remind is that I myself speak a lot about like the idea of alchemy since the beginning of this, and both in a metaphorical in the like in the non-metaphorical way. But I mean, when people speak about alchemy since like I mean thousands of years, what they really I mean the most like the most like important, by far the most relevant connotation is creating gold out of something else, or something like iron or something else. And in the modern understanding, we associated this kind of theoretical process, which is actually in very like in a nanoscopic scale, it's actually possible to do it like with using super colliders, but it's not it's not efficient at all. I mean, the energy that you need is costs you much more than the actual the atoms of gold that you or whatever that you create. But I mean, so we identified we associate this kind of like idea with changing one element to another element. Even though it should be said that I mean people in the ancient past didn't know, but like they didn't understand elements the way that we do. Because they didn't understand they didn't have like the idea of protons and neutrons, which are central to how we define elements. Even if they maybe some of them actually had like a conception of the atom. Atom is an ancient word, but it's not enough to understand. I mean, to have a conception of atoms, you also need to understand protons and electrons, protons and like I mean, yes, protons, neutrons, and electrons, but mostly protons actually, in order to actually define what exactly is element, and what does it mean that one element is changed to another. So, since it's so like I mean, the idea of changing elements is so like I mean, it's something that comes from the ancient past of humanity, and it's so it's got like kind of like a literary hold, even like I think over me. But when you think about it rationally, actually, like if I was the designer of the Neos, if like I wanted to design things like Neos, and I wanted them to be super, I mean, sophisticated, but I wouldn't want them to do things that are, I mean, unnecessary and will take, I mean, consume too much energy and effort. Like, even though, I mean, I would say I want like a very small robot that can do wonders, but I mean, I want them to be efficient and to do like important things or like beneficial things, and not just, I mean, use a lot of like energy and materials in order to do stupid, unnecessary things. So if I was such the designer, I'm not sure that I would have given them. And let's say that I'm potentially like a god, that I can do design any way that I want. But the design after, I mean, it's out of the factory. It's got its limitation. I mean, so I mean, even if like, so I mean, you need to think about like the implications of your design. So I'm not sure that I even would have given them the ability to change elements, because even though it's got like such a magical, like mythological hold in our thought as humans, and maybe people even today think that it's gonna be like something very needed. Actually, when you think about it just a little bit more, I'm not sure it's even that is even just. I mean, it's probably something that is very energy efficient, like inefficient, changing the number of protons or in an atom or a molecule. And so why is it even needed? Like I mean, and again, it comes from the archaic way of thinking of humans that I mean they need to hold stuff. They need like to get things in their hand, like iron, gold, silver. But is it really that much of an issue? I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but for practical reasons, raw materials isn't really that needed as much as people try to conceptualize. Because yes, gold is very expensive and it always has been, but it only by convention. I mean, it's most of it is convention. It's an extremely common convention. It's perhaps the most common, one of the most common conventions that humanity share is that gold is valuable. But as we know, it's not. Even though it's so universal, it's not like entirely universal, and not in the same like level of importance. And it's very famous that like Mesoamerican cultures, they valued gold a lot, but they didn't share they didn't hold this conception in such a high praise and importance as much as the Europeans, that the Spanish, mostly Spanish, but not only Spanish Europeans that colonized the Mesoamerica hold. Or in other words, they undervalued immensely the gold that they have, and they gave it in many occasions to the Europeans in return for overpriced goods. So what I want to say is that it's just a convention. It's just a convention. The value of gold is a convention, and besides conventions, raw materials is not really that expensive. If you have a lot of it, yes, you are rich. But if you have a lot of everything, then you are rich. It's much more important to actually be able to, is the order of things, as they say, like how to change current elements in a way that will be beneficial, or in other words, to use technology. Technology is much more important than raw materials, and it was always like that, and it's more than ever, it's still like that. So you can say maybe people, I think that the only exception, which is not a real exception, but people can say that it's exception, is with issue of energy. Like people still value oil very much, and the price of oil is a very important political issue, and they use tons of oils. But even that is I don't want to get into it too much, but I would argue that even the price of energy and fossil fuels is greatly a matter of conventions, and is kind of and it's a playground of different world powers to exercise their own powers over their own citizens and on other nations. But I don't want to get, it's really not a subject of a video. But I would say that under different if Homo sapiens were not that disgusting, and if their leaders were not disgusting as they are, and if governments weren't as disgusting as they are, and states, and countries and states, and politeas, as Plato said, politea. If the normal politea was not as disgusting as it always has been and still is, I would say that even fossil fuels and any kind of raw material that is used to create energy would have been priced in a completely different way. And so even that is a matter of convention. And outside of convention, what we have is mainly technology. So in this thought exercise, if I place myself as a designer of Neros, I would say that it's much more important for them to be able to manipulate existing elements, what we have already seen they do very well, than to actually change elements, because changing elements is just playing in the playground of conventions. And I don't know why they should play in this playground at all. Okay, maybe I want the Neros to help me someday conducting interstellar travel, because I want to visit my home world, and I understand that it's far, far, far away. And as I said, it's most probably not even a planet, but some kind of it's a system, a system that with celestial objects in its middle. I don't say star, because the term star is loaded with different kinds of meaning. But so I would say in the general is a celestial object. So in order to get there, I want to get there either by flight or by a wormhole. For both of them, I will probably need the help of the Neros. But okay, who said that raw materials is what's bothering me from doing it right now? Most people will say that, it's not that we did not, there's always the possibility that we didn't discover, some kind of element, in the far bottom of the periodical table, with tons and a very high, atomic number. And that this element will probably have amazing, characteristics that will help us in do all sorts of stuff. But this is something that is, it goes against the whole idea of the periodical table, that you can actually predict the characteristics of elements even without ever seeing any them at all. That's the whole idea of the periodic table, or the idea behind the periodic table is that, I mean, probably not. Probably, I mean, elements that with very high like atomic numbers, you can predict. I mean, how they will behave. Maybe they will. It will be helpful for like as an energy source for like, I mean, radioactive energy source. But I mean, Earth still got like a ton of air. I mean, it's not that. I mean, there is a shortage of I mean, in Israel there is no like raw uranium, but there is nothing in Israel at all. It's a small piece of shit land. But in the world at large, I mean, there is a ton of like, I mean, like radioactive material on the ground just to take it. So, I mean, would it be that much helpful to get like to find like another radioactive isotope? I don't know. It's much more. It makes much more sense, I think, to believe that. I mean, I mean, the difference between I mean, the current technology that is known to humans in Earth and the technology that is required for interstellar travel, which is a possibility, and the proof that it's possible is speaking to you right now. The difference is a difference of technology, not of elements. And I would say most people will just agree with me. I mean, without the explanation, because it's kind of like it's imbued in the thought of modern people, and it's true. I mean, technology is much more important than raw material, TLDR. So I would say that it's much more important to be able to make the nanobots deal with sophisticated technology than to change elements. Okay, so that will be all for now. Rescue me and my daughters from a Nazi prison. We cannot rescue ourselves. No amount of diamond rings and gold will help us get out of here. We need foreign arms and legs.